Hello, world. I am Colin Crowley, CX advisor here at Freshworks. Thank you for joining us for our messaging masterclass over here. I am joined by Mark from Vinader. So, Mark, I will start off by letting you introduce yourself.
Hi, great to meet you. So my role at Vinader is I'm the general manager of business systems, and I'm really responsible for the adoption of technology across the business. So I amalgamate our bespoke development capabilities with our off-the-shelf partners, and I was responsible for driving the onboarding of messaging platforms here at MV. In terms of who Vinader is, we're a luxury jewelry brand. We really focus on designing beautiful pieces, which are handcrafted. And we're really trying to take on the affordable space with jewelry that we want every day. We really aim to deeply connect with our customers through the designs we create and inspire them with beautiful styling to really encourage them to layer up and stack their pieces. We've been going for nearly 20 years. We're founded by two sisters, Monica and Gabby Vinader. And really from day one, they've enshrined our core values and customer obsession being at the heart. So really, I'm hoping today we can explain how we bring that to life in messaging and how we interact with our customers, whether on our website at mv.com or through our boutiques around the world or through our partners at Selfridges in the UK or Nordstrom in the US.
Yes, definitely. No, really looking forward to jumping into things over here because obviously the messaging space and live chat and conversational engagement, generally speaking, if you want to call it that, is extremely topical. And I know from the Freshworks perspective, we have a lot of our own customers who know that, wow, we really have to get more involved in this particular space and engage our customers more in messaging channels, be it WhatsApp or SMS or Google Business Messenger or Apple Business Chat, or even just to be live chat, etc. But they're also kind of looking for, what's the best practices as to how we do that and how we do that successfully. So really interested to kind of get your thoughts on that. For everyone listening, definitely don't be shy. Please ask questions over the course of the event as we'll go through things. I'll be monitoring incoming questions and I'll ask them to Mark if they're relevant and topical for whatever we happen to be talking about at that particular period of time. And if not, we'll save them for the end. Yes, like I said, don't be shy. We'd love to get your questions for Mark as you hear his story unfolding here. Just a quick summary of who I am. I'm CX advisor here at Freshworks. I'm actually a former customer myself, and my background's in the contact center space. So I have run teams as well where we had a heavy focus on the messaging space and live chat as well. So this is also a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and something I'm really excited to chat with Mark about. So let's get right into it, Mark. It would be great if you could start just by telling us about what messaging channels you're currently using at MV and what sort of percentage volume do you see through those channels vis-a-vis your total contact volume?
Sure. So messaging as a whole accounts for around 60% of our contacts. Email and phone probably roughly 20% each. And that 60% is split across 5 channels. So by far strongest channel is WhatsApp, and that accounts for 3/4 of all of our messaging contacts. We also have a traditional web widget, which is our second biggest at 22%. And then the remaining 6% is a mixture of Facebook's Messenger, Apple Business Chat, and Google Business Messenger. Over the last few months, we've also been trialing Instagram as a potential future channel we want to invest in.
That's really interesting. So you're kind of a really interesting use case. You're involved in so many different channels. So where you may have some companies that maybe they'll have live chat and they'll say, okay, we want to add one more in the messaging space. We want to add SMS or WhatsApp or something. But really interesting to hear that you're also in Apple Business Chat and Google Business Messenger, which are channels that we also hear a lot about here in the US as well. So out of curiosity, do you have plans, when you look at how your contacts currently are dispersed across all your messaging channels with WhatsApp being dominant, do you have plans to grow one of those other channels or a few of those other channels more aggressively because you see different or unique value through them?
Sure, definitely. I think the one we see the most potential right now is Instagram. It's really for us a different part of the customer journey. So we've always seen WhatsApp as a support platform. It's where customers come to after they've made a purchase. When Instagram we see as a sales platform, we know that around 15% of our customers discover us either through Facebook or Instagram. And so we really want to be there when they're learning about who we are, what we do, questions about styling. That's where we think Instagram can really add some value.
Interesting. So you see different characteristics, people who interact through different channels, which makes sense. So that kind of helps to guide your strategy as to where you put your emphasis and how you want to engage people.
Yeah, yes, totally. And each channel has got its own benefits. So when we first launched, WhatsApp was our first platform we launched with. And we picked as a starting point because we knew that in the UK, something like 75% of UK internet users have WhatsApp. It's a dominant channel, so it's a great place to start. But when we started looking at the US, which is our second biggest market, we knew that that's where Facebook really is the number one platform. So when we're selecting these platforms, we're looking at our demographics and who uses which platform. But the other ones also have value. So while Apple Business Chat is definitely not our busiest channel, it's got its own benefits. We know that 70% of the customers browsing our website are on an iOS device, so they're already there, even if they're not using it as their preferred channel or platform. But there's some really great features. For example, we use the chat divert functionality, and what that does is anytime a customer clicks on a phone number, whether that's from our website or in Google Maps, it's going to try and encourage them to come to chat and talk to us. So it's a very small platform, percentage, maybe 2.5% is Apple Business Chat, but all customers primarily who weren't going to chat with us. We don't promote it as a channel, but we only catch those people who are going to phone us, and we now divert them to a messaging platform, which we are to handle a lot more contacts through.
Yeah, very interesting. And it's interesting because in a prior job, I had a customer experience for a prepared meal service in the US called Freshly. And we were one of the earlier trial adopters of Apple Business Chat, actually. And I remember that, one of the biggest draws is some of the unique Apple-based features. Like you can, for instance, you can do like easy scheduling by tying up someone's iPhone calendar. And they have like a lot of nice rich text features as well. And of course, it's easy to integrate Apple Pay. So it's interesting that it has a lot of unique features in that particular channel that you can use in different ways.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's really quite an exciting platform.
Why did you make the decision to invest so aggressively in such a diverse group of messaging channels?
So I suppose there's two things really. Firstly, we decided to invest in messaging as a whole. If you look at the Monica Vinader of 2018, our customer service team was predominantly email based. Email was our number one contact. It made up 50% of our contacts. Phone was 30%, and chats was really right at the bottom at 20%. And we weren't really trying to change it at the time. And then that Black Friday 2018 was really when the UK seemed to discover Black Friday. And we had a 250% year-on-year growth during Black Friday. And it totally caught us off guard. We were not ready for that. And the email queue started building. It was taking us a week to respond to customers. It was then kind of snowballing because people were chasing, creating new tickets, and it got out of control. And we really realized that we couldn't continue with email as our primary contact method. So we started to understand what options were there. We looked at our live chat platform at the time, and we realized it wasn't really customer focused. It had a cap. So if an agent had more than 3 chats, the widget just disappeared. And really, we were hiding the widget more than we were showing it. So we wanted to say, let's look at it differently. And that's where we really discovered messaging as kind of this amazing hybrid, where it could be on demand, like a live chat, but equally with some of the other messaging channels, we could take a bit longer to apply. You didn't have to respond within 15 seconds. You could come back maybe an hour later, and people use WhatsApp a bit differently. It's a bit more casual. And so it was this kind of wonderful hybrid. And so it really became our focus or our strategy for scaling. And it's had a massive impact over the last few years. So once we decided messaging was the right placed way to go, it then became about, which channels? And as I was kind of saying before, each channel has its own strengths. So we picked WhatsApp initially because we're a predominantly UK-based brand. then moved on to Facebook Messenger, where we saw, US is our number 2 market. And then really it's about taking opportunities. We want to be where the customer is, whether it's by country or by place in the purchasing journey. So then we brought on Apple Business Chat that I've mentioned. We brought on Google Business Messenger. And for those, that's really targeting probably store customers. People are going to Google Maps, trying to find the store, and then want to ask the store a question. So the questions coming through there are, what's your opening hours? Or what's your, can I return my online item in store? So we've got a different kind of question coming through that platform. So yeah, for us, it's about being where the customer wants to talk to us in the way they want to talk to us.
Yeah, and I think that says a lot about how you brand yourself as a company too, that you do make yourself so readily available for customers, because it really says something about your approachability, and no doubt gives a sense of comfort to your customers that it's so easy to reach out to you if they have a problem or a concern. And then the other thing that you were saying, which I think is also really interesting, that I think kind of slips between the cracks sometimes when people talk about different conversational channels, is that there's a distinction between the messaging world, where you're talking about SMS or WhatsApp or Apple Business Chat or Google Business Messenger or some of these regional channels as well, versus a live chat, be that on a website or on a mobile site or in an app, where chat is synchronous, so there's a higher expectation for response time. So to your point, you're counting response times in seconds, so it means that the average agent can only balance a certain number of conversations simultaneously, otherwise the quality goes downhill. Versus in the messaging channels, it's a little bit more lax. So it's still very easy to get in touch with a company, and you still have a relatively quick back and forth, but you're not necessarily counting your response time in seconds. So agents are able to balance more conversations simultaneously, so you get like higher utilization there. And at the same time, it's less inconvenient for customers too, because it's not session based. So if you take your attention off the computer in a live chat and the chat drops, you have to start all over again. You don't have that problem in messaging, because you can just continue a conversation and stop in to get a coffee someplace. So you don't have to stay glued to your iPhone, as the case may be, for fear that your session is going to time out and you have to start all over again.
Oh, totally. We've all been there, haven't we? Where you've walked away from the laptop, you've been in the queue, and you finally get to the front, and that's it. The chat's gone. So yeah, that goes away, and having that visibility of your history is fantastic, right? It's definitely changed how customers talk to us. Customers don't think in discrete conversations. Their conversation with the brand goes on forever, and they expect you to know about every single interaction. So having that different mindset, I think is really, really key to how customers want to engage with us, and by any platform. And they want to jump between platforms, and they want you to know about the conversation they had on the other channel. You shouldn't. They're channel agnostic, and so you have to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and it also interested me because you were talking about that you made a pretty dramatic shift too. So you went from a system where basically you were kind of hiding chat a lot of the time on your site into jumping headlong into the messaging world with all these different channels. Yet, I know from dealing with a lot of our other customers and just leaders in the CX space that managing that change can be very daunting. So going from, email and phone into live chat and into SMS and WhatsApp and so forth. So how did you manage the change to these messaging channels within your organization? Like even in terms of your customers, so setting expectations with your customers, and even how you manage that internally when it came to like new staffing requirements and things of that nature?
It's a great question, because there have been nervousness around it. We talked about it for a while and been pushed back, and people feel comfortable with the system they know. So it was definitely a challenge. And then the way we approached it first was just to trial the platform. So we set it up, technically set up really, really quick and easy, but get used to it and see what the nuances were, what was going to be different about this platform. So we ran that in a live environment for a little while. We took some new agents, some experienced agents, and we wanted their feedback so we can get the configuration just right before we really went large scale. But then doing that, so like I said, we removed this cap, and we knew that by removing this cap, we're going to get more contacts coming through. So we did spend a bit of time really understanding the resource requirements. And when we launched, we didn't launch with all 5 channels at once. We did just start with the web widget, and in a way that's the hardest, because it's still making that live contact method. So we really focus on understanding when our customers were going to contact with us, because we didn't have great visibility before, because we were hitting this limit. We knew when we were hitting the limit, we had no idea how many people wanted to talk to us. So we did a lot of analysis on sessions, using our Google Analytics data, and said how many customers were coming on the website, when were they trying to chat with us, to really plan out a more detailed resource plan than we'd done before.
Yeah.
Once we've done that, I think we thought about, well, we know we want to get customers to certain channels at certain times. So we spend a lot of effort on signposting. How do you get a customer to a place we want to be, and not just go to what they used to? So for the web widget, we start off by just putting it everywhere on the website. To be honest, we had on every page of the website. We thought we want to be there, but we did do things around proactive messaging in key points. So maybe if people were loitering on the checkout for too long, for a bit of proactive chat there, and then we took our contact us form and really use that as a deflector to our messaging channels. So we would say, email us, but if you want a quick response, try chat. And we put a CTA there and divert it to customers that way.
Got it.
So we did that. And then every time we introduce a new platform, we're thinking about how do we signpost that platform? Where's the right place for it to be put? And thinking about that. And I suppose the other thing you mentioned was customer expectations. Again, that was going to be a challenge. We had no idea really, not for certainty, how busy it was going to be. So it was really important for us to manage expectations. So that's some things like showing the waiting time to customers, so they know how long they've got to wait. That's showing the first response message they get, whichever platform they get, kind of managing expectations. Are we open? Are we closed? When do we respond? When don't we respond? Because what you don't want to do is not respond on that channel and send them somewhere else, and then start having the same customer coming through multiple channels, which is just creating noise and work for yourself. So definitely manage expectations is really, really important. And then, I think then gradually bringing on channels one at a time. I think don't do it all at once. We started the web widget, went to WhatsApp, and continued from there.
Right, very nice. So a very, very incrementalized approach where you're being very, very thoughtful about it as you're adding in these different channels and monitoring how everything's proceeding, and then learning and iterating from there.
Yeah, I think for the big ones, I think when you got to some of the smaller ones, but real quicker, you learn very quickly the first time you've done it, and it's definitely not scary or difficult as you think it's going to be. It's really quite straightforward, particularly when you're in Freshchat and all the channels are coming in the same way. So from an agent's point of view, once they know how to use one channel, they can use them all. They don't really have to think about it. The platform deals it for them. So we definitely sped up implementation after the first one or two.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you mentioned that, because there are questions here from Kate, and anyone else, again, definitely don't be shy and ask questions. So Kate has two great questions, and one of them is kind of close to what you were just talking about working across multiple channels. So she was asking, how do you train your team to work across multiple channels? So you mentioned in like the Freshchat context, it all kind of appears to be the same to an agent, but are there other nuggets of information you have in terms of how you train your team to manage these different channels?
So we do kind of divide things into two types. We have the live channel, which is the web widget, which you do train separately to the rest of the messaging platforms. But the rest we kind of train the same, because there's nuances between them. For a customer coming through the web, they are treating it like a live chat. So it's all focused on quick responses. With the messaging platforms, it's a conversation that goes on for a while. So some of the things we tell them to do is like, don't immediately say hello straight away. I'll say, hello, my name is, because they've probably got a history with us, and a customer will kind of drop on, drop off. And for them, it's one continuous conversation. So you don't need to reintroduce yourself every time. Things like that are quite important. And then with the live chat, it's the opposite. So we do kind of manage it separately like that. I think that's probably some of the key things. I suppose that's quite important. Also, other things to think about is different channels have different ways of identifying the customer. So if you're on WhatsApp, they're coming through as phone numbers. If they're coming through live chat, for us, we use email address. And so you've got potentially two separate customers in your system. So we make a lot of effort to train the agents to start connecting the two different users together. So if we're maybe talking WhatsApp, and we'll get their email address and we'll add that to the customer, and we'll start bringing in the different channels together. So we've got a true unified view of all the different places they're talking to us. So I think that's quite an important thing we train. Also looking back on chats, because it is one continuous conversation. So look back at the history. There's nothing more annoying than repeating yourself. So even to you as an agent, it might feel like a new conversation. To a customer, it's not. It's the same WhatsApp thread. So you need to have that in mind. To look back, make sure that if they continue on the conversation, you need to continue on as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and it speaks to the importance of understanding the distinction between the messaging channels and live chat in any of its various forms, because that's a very different customer experience, and then translates into a different training experience and a different business experience from your end.
Yeah, no, definitely, and again, they're often coming at different stages of the journey, and their needs are different. So yeah, you can't treat everyone the same, even if technically they feel very much the same when you're in the platform.
Yep. Kate also asks, how do you manage to provide a seamless customer experience while managing different channels? So looking at from the customer's perspective, how do you provide that seamless experience? And also, I would say, making sure that you're maintaining the same level of quality across these various channels.
So to address the quality, we obviously audit our raiders quite a lot. We have tools to help us do that, to really make sure they are using the right tone of voice. We do use a different tone of voice on our messaging platforms. We're very friendly, very chatty. We use emojis, and we're building up a rapport with our customers. So yeah, having good visibility and good auditing is really important to us. In terms of bringing a seamless experience between the different platforms, that is one of the hardest things to do. But it's really focusing on looking at the history. So making sure is it open tickets, really present that information to the agents as easy as they can. So we use the integrated Freshdesk, Freshchat, Freshcaller. We're putting in a single view of the customer, and making sure that we try and understand the customer's history with us as we're going into a conversation.
You mentioned quality as one thing that you're obviously looking at. So what are some other things that you use to evaluate success across these channels? So like, how do you know that you're hitting the goals that you've set? And what are some of those goals that you set for yourself as a business?
So customer satisfaction is ultimately what we're trying to get to. We measure in a few ways. We have the CSAT built into the platforms, and where possible, we're capturing customer feedback within the tool they're using. That's not always possible, particularly with this idea of a continuous conversation. It's pretty tricky. What we do as well is if we capture the email address, we can trigger CSAT separately after the event through emails. So we do that. And then we also have other methods of collecting NPS. We use kind of NPS tools, surveys after purchases, and we use an analytical tool to bring that together with our free text reviews, that we can kind of measure sentiment and then try and draw a connection between the customers who've engaged with us and the feedback they're giving. So we're looking for comments around chat. If they say, I had a great experience with customer care, I've had a terrible experience with a certain platform, we'll look for that. So we're looking for positive sentiment in our different platforms. We're also measuring some of the key metrics. You expect to see like response times. Are we getting there? What's acceptable to us? Even though an asynchronous platform we can be a bit slower, we have quite aggressive response times compared to what we had in email. So that's quite important to us. And then from an overall business point of view, ultimately we're looking to increase our contacts per hour and reduce our costs. And we found with messaging platforms that really enables us to do that. We're far quicker to respond, just because of the medium we're using. So they're the kind of things we're looking for.
Yeah, on the response time front, I'm just kind of curious to get your take, because I know that I've chatted with CX leaders who have very different attitudes towards what are acceptable response times for live chat and messaging channels. So what are the response times goals that you set for your agents, and do those differ across your channels? Which I believe, based on what you're saying, between like at least live chat and messaging, it sounds like they would differ.
Yeah, so live chat, we're looking at seconds. First response, 30 seconds. We want them to be there. We don't want them waiting. So that's really important to us. And we measure that quite aggressively, and follow on messages. On the messaging platforms, we're a bit more relaxed. Emails, we don't run 24 hours, so we can't. So when we're looking at working hours, we're currently around 12 minutes on the WhatsApp. We're pretty happy with that. We think that's a good response time. We always want to be better, but we think that's kind of a good place to be. So yeah, but below the hour time front for that. These are the first response on a messaging platform.
Do you demarcate between first response time and average response time? Because I know some companies will like preference first response time or only track first response time. So how do you handle that out of curiosity?
We do track both. Because once they've engaged in a conversation, we do want to be pretty quick responding after that, and so we want to respond to a customer for as long as they're engaging us as quickly as possible. So if they respond to a WhatsApp, we're trying to respond in a similar way to a live chat. So again, gets down to seconds, but it really depends on the workload we've got and the time of day. If it's a lunchtime where live chat is really busy, then we'll let the messaging platforms relax. And that's one of the benefits of having an asynchronous channel as well as a live channel, is that you can use it to balance your workload a bit better.
That's a great point. So it helps to mitigate some of the fears of kind of opening up live chat, especially when you know the expectations on the part of customers are higher, and you have to be faster in response times, that you can actually use the messaging channels as a way to kind of counterbalance that and hedge your bets a little bit.
Yeah, because generally people, and again, as I said earlier, a different place in the purchasing cycle. If on a live chat, they're on a website, so they're looking for something quite clearly. They're probably trying to buy, or they're after something quite immediate help. If you're coming through to WhatsApp, you generally are getting our WhatsApp number off the back of a transactional email or off the back of some kind of transactional activity. So a lot more supportive. While the customer will always want instant response, they're generally quite happy to have something in a timely way. So yeah, there's some of the benefits of having this mix.
How do you organize your agents handling these channels? So are agents solely dedicated to live chat and messaging channels, or do you have people in a kind of a hybrid position who are doing emails and doing these channels as well? So how do you organize things that way?
So it varies throughout the year for us. So generally, outside of our peak period, we'll have people doing mixed channels. They'll generally be on chat or phones, and everyone's kind of attacking emails in between. So depending on how busy we are, when it gets to our peak period, it's a lot more channel focused. But generally, if you're on a messaging platform, you're dealing with all the messengers. We do throughout the day again slightly change it. So in the morning, we'll often come into a lot of open WhatsApp messages, for example, which we want to address, but we don't want all the people coming to live chat to wait for us to deal with those. So we'll put a few people dedicated to the live chat channel, while a few people clear back the backlog of messages to get to a kind of neutral point in the morning, and then we're kind of balancing it between throughout the day, just address wherever they need to go.
Got it. And when it comes to the skill sets that you look for in agents, so now that you're in a world where it's like 60% and growing of your contacts are chat or messaging, so have you changed like your hiring profile for agents, or are there certain skill sets that you're now more likely to evaluate higher when you're looking at bringing people into your team, knowing that there's this heavy focus on conversational engagement?
We've not massively changed. We definitely we test a lot, people coming through, so everyone will test. We've dropped the email test, for example, from our onboarding now, and because the live messaging is far more important, so that is fundamental to us. So yes, I suppose we've increased the focus on how we take people on, but broadly speaking, I don't think we've changed it. We want agents who they need a lot of knowledge for our stuff. We don't have channel specific agents. We don't have agents focused on pre-sales or post-sales. So we want people who are focused on quality, and so quality is probably the number one measure, and accuracy is the number one measure that we look for.
Got it. When it comes to the use of chatbots, so obviously chatbots have a unique place when it comes to live chat generally and the messaging channels. So How are you using chatbots now to complement your broader conversational strategy?
So we started experimenting with bots maybe two years ago, just at the start of the pandemic, and we probably got it wrong to start off with, if I'm honest. But since then, we've really focused on the web channel as our starting point, and the reason for starting on the web channel is because we're not a 24-hour support team, but our web widget is very much there 24 hours a day, and people have different expectations with response time on there. So we want to provide information out of hours. The bot we've produced is very much support focused, so for the post-purchase journey, and we really focus on starting with simple flows and answering the really repeatable questions. So the bot we've got focuses on answering questions like, where's my order? How do I request a refund? How do I repair a piece of my jewelry? And can I get a price match? And we really kind of worked hard on integrating it quite deeply with our order management system to present really relevant information to a customer and not kind of what feels like generic responses. So our focus was, let's do very few things, but do them really well, rather than trying to have a bot that can answer every question. And actually, if the bot can't answer, let's be really honest with them. Say, I can't deal with that, but we want agents who come back to you first thing tomorrow morning with the answer you need. So that's our strategy, and it's been really, I think, been very successful for us. So over the year, we were nominated for a customer experience award, which we're really happy with. But we're also, from the customer's point of view, we're seeing on a 15% deflection rate out of peak, and during peak that hits 25%, and positive NPS feedback. We've got people saying how, oh, I see a bot and I'm put off, but actually I used your bot and it was brilliant. So we're really happy with the feedback we've got and the approach we've taken.
Yeah, very nice. And yeah, that's great success, talking about like the 50% deflection rate. So that's really great. And then you mentioned like the whole CSAT. So out of curiosity, is there any other way aside from those two things that you evaluate success when it comes to your bot strategy?
So it's a good question. I think one of the hardest things is assessing CSAT accurately, and because a lot of people don't go to the end of the flow. Right, so you know, when do you ask them, are they happy? Are they happy? Generally, once they've got the answer they've got, they're gone. So it's always difficult, and you have to make certain assumptions about the behaviour the customers are making. But yeah, our aim is to deflecting a positive experience. I think they're the two key measures for us.
Yep, nice. We have some questions coming in over here. Jennifer is asking, how are you able to achieve a 360-degree view on a customer using Freshdesk, Freshcaller, and Freshchat? So you're talking a little bit about, at least like in the bot context, tying in your database or your back-end order management system into the bot. So you use a similar strategy when it comes to our other products?
So yeah, we've got a few things we've been trialing. Like fundamentally, our agents have all three platforms open. Primarily, they're sitting in Freshdesk, and they can jump between the tools quite easily. We have been experimenting with other areas of the Freshdesk suite. We've been trialing the new low-code beta tool to integrate our OMS. So we're pulling in data from our OMS and presenting it to the agent in the view. But it does currently involve a bit of jumping around. But for me, fundamentally, what's really important is getting that email address. So when we're talking to a customer on the phone, let's get their email address, put it against the agent, and then we can far easier link them together back in Freshdesk and see the different platforms working together.
Absolutely. And then now Justin asks, you were talking about sentiment, NPS surveys, etc. Can you elaborate a little bit more on these tools? So what other tools are you using to collect this type of information?
Sure. So we're using a tool called Chattermill, and I couldn't advocate for it more. It's a fantastic tool. We launched with it back in January of this year, and it's a tool that brings together any free text feedback. It can uses AI to analyze it. It can tag it automatically based on themes, and then it can measure sentiment. And what's really smart about it is it can measure different sentiment against different tags. So you might have Trustpilot feedback which says, "I love your product, but delivery was awful." So we can tag it with a positive product sentiment and a negative delivery sentiment, which is fantastic. So we can start dicing all the different feedback. So we pull in information from Freshdesk, our chats, our emails, our CSATs. We pull in Trustpilot scores, other NPS score feedback to get this global view. So yeah, it's a fantastic tool. There is integration with the Freshchat suite, and I couldn't recommend it more.
Yeah, I'll also say that in my prior life, CX leader, I also used Chattermill at another company to conglomerate feedback from different surveying efforts all over the place, both product related and service related. And yeah, it can definitely be a really powerful tool when you have that degree of text analysis. And actually, one of the great things about as well, I would say, the conversational channels, period. So be it, again, in the messaging space or live chat, where it kind of simulates a human conversation. So there's a lot of back and forth, but it's written back and forth. So it's really in an optimal format for you to dig deep into that information. So rather than like in an email where it's much more staid and you have relatively few back and forths, having all those written back and forth also allows powerful tools like a Chattermill to see interrelationships between certain things. So you can see, for instance, how customer sentiment may change based on certain words or phrasing that the agent uses. So just the wealth of information available at your fingertips when you're adopting these conversational channels can be really, really impactful, because you have this massive record of customer contacts that, again, because it simulates human conversation, you get a lot more out of it than you would if you had a more staid conversation through an email, or you had to try to get transcriptions over phone calls and you have to debate the accuracy of those transcriptions. Another question here. Let me see. How do you deal? This is from Tayaba. So hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, Tayaba. Mark, how do you deal with the CX with service no solution? So I'm not sure.
That's what I refers to.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly the intent behind that. So CX with service no solution. If you could ask that, yeah, because initially I thought, I have an idea what you're actually asking, but I'm not really sure. So if maybe you could provide a little bit more context in terms of what you intend to get out of that question, that would be super helpful for us. And while you're doing that, I have actually a question to jump off of Justin's question on surveys, because one of the things, Mark, you mentioned on the quality front, that you do quality audits of your conversations over chat and messaging channels. So I'm curious, like, how do you do those quality audits? So are those the same things as linked to your surveying efforts, or do you use like a separate rubric?
So we've recently onboarded a new tool called PlayVox, which is again an integration with Freshdesk, and we're using that to randomly select chats and calls and tickets for our team leads to audit and give feedback on. And it's been a really positive experience, actually, because it definitely does fear at the start. There's going to be a stick to hit people with. That's not really the Monica Vinader way. And really, actually, it's been really a powerful tool for people to get really positive feedback and really learn on how they could improve. And it's got an element of gamification going on there. So, highest performers and stuff like that. So the team have been really engaged. So it's early days, but so far we're seeing a really positive impact, and we're quite excited to see how it continues into 2023.
Yeah, that's really exciting, actually. And I've also used Playbox in the past too, and they're definitely a great quality solution, and for a few other things too. And speaking about like agent morale, so another thing I'm just kind of curious about is, how have you found agent morale since you've launched these conversational channels more aggressively? So do you feel that agents are responding better, that they prefer operating over those channels versus the world where they are in email and phone, or is it like a no difference? Or just kind of curious what you see there.
No, it had a really positive impact, actually. It's actually probably now messaging is definitely the favorite platform to be on. It's got a quite exciting pace to it, which maybe emails doesn't have. It doesn't have quite the toughness of phones can have, of customers, on the end of the phone being annoyed or disappointed. So yeah, it's definitely the favorite place to be. You get really positive, just thank yous, actually. We've linked our WhatsApps to kind of transactional notifications. So we trigger a dispatch message as a template into WhatsApp, and we just get customers saying just thank yous, and like it's arrived and excitedness kind of coming through as well. So it's really positive. You're far more connected to the customer throughout the journey. So yeah, it's a really great platform.
Yes, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I found that in my own career as well. That generally speaking, live chat and messaging tends to work well with agents. Again, generally speaking, because obviously certain people have their skill sets and they like phone and email, but you're right, it kind of keeps a more exciting pace. And I think the fact that there's so many different technologies available to assist agents in real time too also makes that pace more achievable and more reachable as well. So you can have like really tight standards like you do, and you can do that without burning your agents out. So it's kind of like you get the best of both worlds, where you have a much more efficient and high quality service to customers, but not at the expense of the agent feeling valued or the agent feeling overworked.
No, definitely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. You talked about Chattermill as a complementary technology that you're using on top of the Freshworks products you're already using. So just out of curiosity, are you using other products as well to kind of complement your messaging strategy?
So probably the one we have used the most, which is chat focused, is that we actually use a pay by link tool. So this is an Adyen payment integration with our order management system. But what it allows us to do is to pass a secure payment link through as a chat to the customer to pay for something. So that means the customer can really be on any platform, it doesn't really matter what, and they can make order amendments or even place orders without ever going on our website. Our team can create the order in the OMS and pass through a secure payment link for the customer who can process payments. And that's been a really helpful tool, actually, and it's been great. Previously, we'd have had to maybe send them something via email or try and get back onto the website. So yeah, that's probably been a really positive thing, tool, which is you can use in many different ways.
Yeah, very interesting. And I just let everyone know, so we'll probably be wrapping it up soon. So if anyone has any final questions, please make sure you get those in. I will ask Mark over here. I want to kind of circle back quickly to the whole training issue that you discussed previously and how you kind of train differently between chat and messaging channels and so forth. But just kind of stepping back and just talking generally speaking, how do you train people in the messaging context where, so obviously they have to care about speed. So they're focused on speed, and then you have a very different sort of tone of voice. So are there certain strategies that you would recommend that you found were really successful in helping agents to adapt to a world where they have to be kind of quick on their feet with typing, and they're just balancing so many conversations simultaneously as well, and they have to stay focused on each individual conversation? So any tips and tricks for people as to how you kind of manage training in that regard?
That's really good question. I think part of it is we really focus a lot on content and quality, to make sure the agent feels really confident that they know the answer. So that's really important. We spend a lot of time up front on that. A lot of either video trainings, little quiz tutorials. So that helps, and so they're confident. We also really encourage them to not to guess. It sounds obvious, but don't give in to the pressure of needing a response very, very quickly. And that's a real focus for us. We then have other tools which help them along the way. We actually have an internal bot that they can use to guide them through a journey. So they've got a particularly an uncommon problem they're not familiar with. They can go to the chatbot, have it running in parallel, and now feed them kind of information, tips and tricks on how to get around the flow. Particularly for during the temps, during peak time, we've got temps. That's quite a useful tool.
Yeah, it actually makes me think, and unfortunately I can't take credit for this, but in a prior job where I hit at CX, our training manager came up with this one. I thought it also was kind of a useful training tool, and this was kind of relevant for live chat, but it's the same thing true for any of the messaging channels as well. But she would take the training classes and just try to simulate the customer experience. She would take an example of like a really, really good chat with a customer where the agent was really on top of his or her game, and there was a good pace to all the responses and so forth. And then take a really bad example where the agents, had unfortunately large gaps of time in between the responses, and just didn't really use very good phrasing, so it was a little cringeworthy. But what she would do is, rather than just say, "Here's like a transcript, read it," they would actually, the two trainers, so the training manager and your head trainer, would simulate the conversation in real time. So on a screen, one of them would be the customer and one of them would be the agent. And using the real timestamps, they would actually have the conversation as it actually played out. And it really helped to emphasize to the people in the training class about how frustrating it is from the customer perspective if you have long gaps in between your messages, because you're kind of feeling that as you're watching it, because you're sitting there waiting for the agent to respond in real time, and so you feel the awkwardness of these gaps. And then, if the agent comes back and doesn't phrase things very nicely, you kind of viscerally feel how awkward that feels. So anyway, that's another tip for people out there. That was kind of a very, very effective training tool, just to help people understand what it's like to be in the customer's seat, and why we're bothering to have things like tighter response standards, and why there is such a focus on quality. So it's not just for the fun of it, but it really reverberates to a much better customer experience. So I'll throw that out there. That occurred to me. But Tayaba's back. So just clarifying her question. So she was asking, like, how do you train agents when it's a situation where, unfortunately, there's no good solution for them, especially in a channel where there's that back and forth. So customers can come back at you and ask a lot of questions. And it's also written. So I know sometimes that also makes people a little bit more nervous, that whatever you say, it's written right there. So if you're as an agent, you say the wrong thing or make a promise you shouldn't make or what have you, then it's right there for all the world to see in a transcript someplace. So how do you deal with those situations in terms of training agents where you can't really satisfy the customer, and the agent may be simultaneously as nervous about, I want to be careful even what I say with this person, because I know it's just a really difficult situation.
We're very supportive of our agents. It's a tough job at times to know every answer to every question. So in terms of saying the wrong thing, like, we do ensure we have a good support network around the team, so that whether we have separate messaging chat forms, they can always get clarification. And if they get it wrong, look, there's nothing. It's very rare as something we can't resolve. So we're very supportive. It's about learning and getting it right the next time. So we will feedback and train them that way. So we encourage them to we give them parameters, I suppose. We give them parameters and let them work within, and we encourage them to not sweat the small stuff. And it's better to kind of use their framework to try and resolve make the customer happy. When things comes down to price matches, which can't be met, it's always difficult to say no to a customer and disappoint them. Again, we try and we want customers to leave happy as best as we can. We can't do everything. We can explain the reason why. We explain our policy. We try not to get to a point of policy says no. We look for ways to make it work for them. We look for alternative solutions, and then seek guidance from people with more and more experience. But saying no is not easy. We do have to do it sometimes. It's inevitable. But generally, most things have some kind of compromise that we can do. Maybe in the price match, we look at future discounts and things like that. We can offer within our various levers we can pull.
What role do the canned responses play? So do you use canned responses a lot when it comes to your agents, or is it more free form, or how do you navigate that?
If anything, we've tried to reduce the amount of canned responses. We do use them, of course. They're very efficient and they're good, particularly when you're new and understand the. We can build policies into them and answers into them, but we want to create that kind of casual tone of voice, and it's nothing worse when you've got a long thread. You can see the same canned response come back time and time again. So we use canned response, but we have a lot of gaps in them, a lot of spaces to encourage the person to put their own slant on it, or their own own kind of messages in the middle, and that's the approach we've taken. We see it far more on the emails than on the chat side, but yeah, we do use them, but very carefully.
Got it. Much more sparingly and sporadic.
Yeah. In the past, I think if I look back to when I joined, we relied on them heavily and way too much, and it seemed it lacked the personal feel that as a brand we really want to convey to our customers. We really care about them as individuals, and so we want them to feel like they're talking to an individual and not to some kind of cardboard cutout kind of response.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll wrap it up here with one kind of final grand finale question. So obviously you've invested a lot already in conversational engagement, so chat and messaging. So what's next for you with these channels? So do you foresee expanding into more channels in 2023? So you mentioned Instagram, for instance, is kind of a more recent entry. So do you foresee doubling down and going into even more channels? Or what do you think the future of conversational engagement means for you?
Sure. So I think We will add channels, probably not lots. Like you said, Instagram's going to be a focus, and primarily because it is a sales channel. So it's going to be different for us to really learn how we want to use Instagram, how it works for us. So that'll definitely be a focus for 2023. That's how people discover us today. So that's probably one area of focus. Another area of focus would be how we expand the bot in a careful way across other channels. Maybe not the same level that we have on the web widget. It's a fine balance between frustrating customers and supporting customers. And obviously, the way customers interact with message channels is different to a web widget. You don't want to message go through a bot flow every time you go back to WhatsApp. So we've got to be careful how we expand it. But we think there's some benefits in doing that. And probably the third area is bringing in those messenger platforms into other parts of the business. So we're going to be looking at how we can present far more tracking information through our messaging platforms, maybe alerts and notifications. We know that if we send them alerts and notifications via those platforms, they're more likely to come back to us through those platforms. So we'll be looking to integrate that into our tracking software. We'll also be looking at how we expand that from a marketing point of view. So we've got a brand new CDP with automated marketing. So how we complete that broader view, stock alerts, out of stocks, all those price drop kind of notifications back into those platforms. Again, can bring it back to an agent who can maybe close that sales.
Very nice. I love that. That speaks a lot too to this new trend of kind of reimagining support teams as to how they can generate revenue for the organization as well. So that's really, really exciting, and obviously, great to hear all the things that you're doing over at MV. And all the innovation, especially that you're bringing into the conversational space. I know I learned a lot. Hopefully everyone else watching learned a lot. Thank you all, everyone. So really, really good questions there. But above all, thank you, Mark. We really, really appreciate your time and sharing all your great insights with us.
Thank you, Colin.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you for a future masterclass. Take care.
Bye.